Welcome to another edition of Women and Investing, where we aim to shed light on the financial challenges facing a breast cancer diagnosis. As October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, our guest today, Sarah Crone, has not only navigated this journey herself as a breast cancer survivor, but has also assisted others in navigating their finances during such a crucial time in her capacity as a financial advisor. Sarah, thank you for joining us today for this important conversation.
Thanks, Ronwin.
Sarah, at the time of your diagnosis, can you please take us back to where you were and what your financial situation was like at that time?
It was an interesting time because I was diagnosed the day before my 40th birthday. So it came as quite a shock being so young. It was difficult in that at that stage of your life, you haven't built up a lot of personal wealth. So it's a stressful situation, very overwhelming, and a lot of decisions to be made.
And Sarah, just from a perspective of what are the common misconceptions about breast cancer?
There are many. I'm too young and fit to get breast cancer. I was 40 years old. I'd run Comrades the year before, so I was fit. Another big misconception is there's no breast cancer history in my family. That means nothing. My diagnosis came absolutely out of the blue. There was breast cancer history in my family, in my dad's older sisters, but it was a completely different type. You get different types of breast cancer, so it had nothing to do with the genetics. One of the other things is only women get breast cancer. 1 in 27 women get breast cancer, which is a very scary stat. But now the incidence of male breast cancer is now coming out of the blue. 1 in 838 men are diagnosed with breast cancer. So that is a big misconception.
And I think not something that many men would consider, or women, because like if you don't have breast cancer in your direct family line, you probably think that you're okay.
Absolutely.
And support network during your treatment journey, did you have to have any special care during your time, during your...
Support network is always friends and family. I have a very close family and wonderful friends. But the other thing that I decided to do on my journey was to surround myself with an all-woman medical team, from the oncologist to the surgeon to the therapist that I went to at the time to assist me getting through that situation. That was a great help, women that could really understand the journey.
Wonderful.
My colleagues at work, of course, run my own business. I'm in partnership as a financial advisor, and my colleagues were just incredible how they came through for me. So that's important too.
Absolutely.
And one more thing I have to say, the angels that you meet along the journey, from the oncology nurses to the doctors to the medical people, your fellow cancer sufferers that are going through the chemo, you meet the most incredible people along that journey.
They just have a deep understanding of where you are and what you're experiencing.
Completely.
What are some of the primary financial challenges people typically encounter at the point of a breast cancer diagnosis?
So important, Ron, when, as I said, there are just so many decisions that you need to make, and it's such an incredibly overwhelming time. So I think the things that are so important, medical aid and gap cover, of course, that's the first port of call. What is my medical aid going to cover? If there's anything that the medical aid doesn't cover, gap cover kicks in. In my personal experience, my medical aid plan was very low level at the time because I was young, I was fit, I didn't need a very comprehensive medical aid. My scheme at the time allowed me to backdate to January of that year and upgrade to a much higher plan that covered a lot more. Even be that as it may, I think it was about 50,000 Rand out of my own pocket that gap cover covered. So that's very important. The second really important thing, and I always say this to my younger clients, is they think they don't need income protection. And that is disability income protection that kicks in and pays your monthly, 75% of your monthly salary for the time that you are going through the disability or the illness. So important, because a lot of young people don't necessarily have a lot of debt that needs to be paid off. So they don't think of life cover or any sort of risk assurance cover. But income protection is a young professionals or any young person in employment, one of the biggest things that they need to consider, because who's going to look after you during that time that you are not earning? You really need that sort of insurance to look after yourself. The other big one is dread disease cover. And I think what people don't understand is when you are underwritten for any sort of risk assurance, the younger and healthier you are, the better the rate is that you're getting for the
Premium,
insurance. So if you start out early, when you start your career and get those insurances in place, then you generally don't have any loadings or anything on your premium. So it's something that's so important to think about. So yes, medical aid, gap cover, income protection, dread disease cover. And another really important one is that emergency slush fund that all of us should actually have in place. And that's, we always say, around about 3 months of your living expenses to be put into an emergency slush fund so that you can draw on those sort of things at a time like this when you're needing a little bit of extra.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a financial advisor, what are the key conversations to have with them at the time of diagnosis? I'm sure if you have a financial advisor, it just helps with the weight of having to make additional decisions when you already have so much to consider about your health and your well-being.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, those insurances are important, and to have those conversations earlier on and get all of your insurance in place, that is very important. But then at the time, so many decisions need to be made in terms of which doctor or oncologist do I go to? How do I navigate through? Do I have chemo first? Do I have a lumpectomy or mastectomy first? All of those sort of things. So if you are able to speak to your financial advisor to talk about the finances around how am I going to afford this? What are the travel burdens that I'm going to be foisted with? If you've got the finances spoken about, it makes some of those other difficult and overwhelming decisions a little bit easier. As we know with anything in life, if you're worrying about finances when you're going through a stressful time, it just adds such a burden of stress.
And during a cancer diagnosis, would you say that it would still be important to continue investing for your future? So would you still continue with your retirement fund or any other additional funds that you do have that you're investing with? Or do you kind of stop all of that completely and just focus on your well-being and getting through
absolutely not. To continue always funding retirement and investments. And that's where the insurance is so important, because if you don't have income protection and you don't work for a corporate perhaps that supports you through that period, a self-employed person, if you don't have those insurances in place, then you're going to have to stop retirement funding, which is obviously detrimental to any financial planning that you've done up to that point. So important for women and men to consider all of those things from a young age in the event of something like this really coming out of left field like it did for me.
And your financial advisor almost becomes part of your team. So you have your medical team that's taking care of you from all those perspectives, but you also have somebody who's taking care of your finances, kind of leaving you with a clear understanding of that you're covered and that you're sorted out and that somebody's making sure that you have enough to cover all your costs. Must be such an incredible freedom, because you know that you don't have to think about it and that everything's been accounted for.
Absolutely.
What are some of the unexpected costs associated with cancer or a breast cancer diagnosis? So the things we don't really think about outside of just your medical costs.
Oh, there are so many. One of the things that I was advised on my journey was, I lived in Durban at the time, was to consider going up to Johannesburg to a very well-known breast surgeon, Dr. Carol Ben. And I was just told by the radiographer that gave me my diagnosis, jump on a plane and go and see her. She's one of the best in the country. And that came with a cost. So my full surgery was done in Johannesburg. My mum came up with me to support me. We had to find somewhere to stay in Joburg, pay for flights. So you don't think about those sort of things. And if you do have a little bit of extra, it just gives you that freedom to make decisions like that, to say, I want to have the best breast surgeon in the country. It allows you to do that sort of thing. Another big thing that people don't realize is my journey entailed chemotherapy first, then a mastectomy, and then radiation. And radiation treatment is every day for 5 weeks. So you go in for 10 minutes every day for 5 weeks, and that's a long period of time, a lot of travel backwards and forwards. So that's travel costs, which are also very, very expensive. Yeah.
And what factors should somebody consider when deciding between medical aid and medical insurance, for example?
Medical aid is so important in this country. We do, having said that, have some fantastic state hospitals in some of the regions, but when you are diagnosed with cancer, it's such a scary feeling to think of this cancer growing inside of you. And the sooner that you can start the journey of treatment and that sort of thing, the easier it is for you to deal with your diagnosis. With medical aid, you literally speak to your medical aid, the wheels start turning, and you feel as if you're getting somewhere. When you don't have medical aid and possibly you go into the state system, you go onto a waiting list. I mean, as I said, the prevalence of breast cancer, 1 in 27 women, the queues of people who are needing treatment and to put together treatment plans are huge. So important to have that medical aid and gap cover in place. So it just gives you the freedom of making those decisions and being able to make the right decisions. Medical insurance, on the other hand, is more for day-to-day GP visits or medical needs or medicines that you require. So another misconception, oh, I've taken out medical insurance,
yes,
it'll cover me. Medical insurance doesn't cover cancer. So important, and some of these big medical aids these days do have very affordable plans. And I know not everybody can afford medical aid in the country, but there are affordable plans for certain people that just gives you that extra level of comfort.
And I think that's an important conversation to have with your financial advisor as well, just to review what your medical aid offers, what it covers, what it doesn't, and try to make a concession if something isn't going to be covered along the way for your treatment.
Absolutely.
And from a personal perspective, what insights did you gain from your experience with cancer that have been invaluable in your role as a financial advisor?
I think the diagnosis changed my entire life. It was a shock. It was something that was very difficult to go through, but I just from a kind of a emotional side, having been through and survived something like that just gives you an incredible amount of resilience. But from a financial advisor perspective, it's just helped me so much with some of my clients that have been diagnosed with cancer, to actually be able to speak from experience, to know what they're going through. And also in the sales process, you know, sometimes selling of insurance comes with such a bad rap. And to be able to say, you know, I've personally been through this. My policies paid out, my income protection paid out for the 6 months that I was having chemotherapy. My dread disease cover paid out, and I was able to actually move from where I was and purchase a lovely little home that just became a safe haven for me. So, you know, the freedom of having that, and also being able to speak from experience in anything in life makes such a difference, and also gives you a degree of empathy, not just for clients that are diagnosed, but clients that go through any difficulty in life. You are able to speak from a place of, I've been in a dark place before, I know what it feels like, and it does enhance what you can provide clients with and how you can support them in a difficult time.
Like a deep understanding.
Yes.
Sarah, thank you for sharing your story and your expertise with us today. We hope this interview encourages and empowers those navigating the financial challenges of a cancer diagnosis. Remember that knowledge is power, and with the right guidance and careful planning, you can overcome any financial challenge. Stay strong, stay informed, continue going for your regular breast cancer screening, and remember that you are not alone in this journey towards securing your financial future.